fuck? Read the disclaimer. Hello everyone! So, as Hasbro has gone on through all the years, we finally come to a close, and I thought with collaboration with Kyo, we'll be doing the top 5 best or like strongest combos to come out of Hasbro's final release parts. And before we continue with this video, obviously credits to Kyo, we both worked on this together. He did a lot of great work on the scripting work. I give combo recommendations. So we will eventually be publishing this either as an article or on the WBO, so I will eventually update links if you eventually want to read the full thing. And as well, mallofbays.com. We recently restocked on Beyblade X. We're also getting through any of the missing grips, battle pass, whatever, etc., to send any accessories to customers. So check it out. It is an optional way to support the channel. I appreciate your support regardless, and we will do our best to make sure everything is fulfilled. So first of all, I want to give an obvious disclaimer. No Pro Series, just the main Hasbro Slope stuff. Just so that way we're focusing on the mainline stuff and not really like the Karatomi base. And as well, we're going to be focusing on the Hasbro standard meta. So however the meta developed from Hasbro from SwitchStrike, that's what we're going to be focusing on the Hasbro standard, basing this off of all the parts that are released. And if there are alternate parts that you can use, I can try to mention, but yeah, we'll basically go into it. And this was me and Kyo's best shot on trying to analyze the absolute crap show that is the Hasbro meta. So we're going to be going over to our first combination, which is number 5, Spryzen Requiem S3 Wheel SP Bearing. This is a powerful opposite spin and stamina performance focused combination. You can also use Spryzen Requiem for same spin if you would want to. Just primarily the general focus is towards the opposite spin and great stamina performance. So the parts you would need is a Spryzen Requiem for the lair, Wheel SP for the disc, and the driver bearing. I'll basically show up a reference for where you could get these parts on releases from the Bay Wiki, so you can just basically look. So if you recall during Beyblade Burst God with friggin' Requiem's dominance, it's pretty much more or less kind of similar, just even more of a presence because it lasted now so many years because the meta developed really weird for Hasbro. So if you recall like Beyblade Burst Standard, you know things like Astral, World, or even Burst, you know, are kind of there for like their equalization. So this is more or less kind of silly. It's like the Hasbro equivalent basically. So it fills that role. The bearing driver is Hasbro's highest performing stamina driver. Nothing really came close to it for same or opposite spin that was that consistent. So pretty much an opposite spin, you are going to be kind of clear in that regard. When you combine this with the fact that Spryzen Requiem is a dual spin lair, meaning it can handle opposite spin or same spin matchups, it's incredibly versatile to use. And you have a pretty good chance to equalize and beat any opponent that you face. The disc choice of Wheel Speedstorm is because Wheel has, I would say, the most consistent at least, outwards weight distribution and overall stamina performance for this combination. For any real potential weaknesses, it's if you go up against attackers, if you're an opposite spin against the attacker, maybe try to weak launch or try to do some variants of that, and potentially you could equalize and beat them, but that's really the only real threat to this combination. Then after, for number 4, for the best Hasbro combination, we have Xiphoid Pandemonium Twist Q Extreme Greatest Armor. That is a goddamn mouthful. So for an example, literally like any tight core, if you want to even do a heavy one like Baldurov, is perfectly fine. It's just really there for the thumbnail. You have many alternatives. For the blade, Xiphoid. Xiphoid is actually pretty good because they actually did a single called Xiphoid Knight, so it's going to be a little cheaper to get instead of just Xiphoid Excalius. You need the gravity ring. This is actually a must for this combo to work at all. The Greatest Armor, or G13. Essentially what this part does is that since Xiphoid is kind of crap without it, you actually really need it because since it's so hollow, it actually fills in the gaps for it. So not only does this resolve the issues for, let's say, stamina, helping it a little bit, but weight, even little attack points, but also the burst resistance because it's super tight with G13, so you avoid bursting a lot more, which is good. Now Twist is a little bit hard to get because it's kind of locked in sets. I just thought Twist was a pretty consistent disc for attack. You don't have to use Twist from Lightning Pandora or whatever else I released on. You could use other stuff like Overq. Then after you have the best rubber attack tip, which is Extreme. Extreme basically produces high friction. It has a good soft grip. It is still the best attack driver for Hasbro. Alternates would be either Hunter or Keep Sling Shock. Now for our combo number 3, we have Arc Belkesh B3 00 Cross Atomic. So for the parts that you'll basically need for this, are just displayed on here. Some of them are easy to get, some of them are very, very hard to get because of how Hasbro released it, looking at Belkesh there. You have your alternate if you don't have an atomic, which could be Atomic Slingshot. So Belkesh is really, really good since essentially the slopes on it are very, very good compared to its Takeratomi counterpart. It has very good defense and stamina. And I would say overall is kind of dominant for the left spin stuff. Like, Belkesh is very, very good in its same spin matchup against left stuff. I would say that against same spin left stuff, it should pretty much be winning, and against attack stuff, it should be doing a pretty good job. Not only just because maybe atomic, but also just because the layer is very defensive and has high stamina. So with good slopes, defense, and stamina, the only thing to worry is maybe against like a skilled attack type user, but otherwise you should pretty much be fine. And as well, your alternates to like 00 could be like 10 or 0. And atomic, we've already mentioned the alternates. Now, for our best combo number 2, we have Nightmare Lunar, L3 Expand Extreme. The parts are pretty much here, and the alternates I've basically already mentioned. I guess the alternate here would I guess be maybe like the turn frame if you wanted to, if you didn't want to use Expand. Now, essentially, if you remember Burst Standard, how we have Guilty Longinus, this is basically still the best Lunar. Nothing comes close to it. It's the heaviest, the most powerful still out of all of them. It is very much a top tier attacker that can beat stuff same spin or even opposite spin. And if you are skilled enough, you can pretty much sweep pretty well. It's very good for KOing stuff. The only thing that might get scary with Nightmare is if you go up against our number 1 combination, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But overall, it's very good. Like, you're pretty much going to be KOing stuff, or potentially even bursting stuff, depending what you go up against. And also to quickly mention too, the Expand frame is there for the reason that Expand really helps with the attackers, because it's basically like this wide frame of support that helps give them a little bit more oomph when they're trying to push bays out. So there's always that benefit. And Turn also kind of does something similar with like weight and also shape. And finally, we have our number 1. We have Whirl Destinivo Bellfire. I gave it overbearing, and I think it's like 4 dash or whatever. So for the chip, you obviously don't need Destinivo Bellfire. You can use anything that's really tight. Perseus, Dragon, Pandemonium, regular Evo Bellfire, etc, etc. And then after for the blade, it's Whirl. Whirl only released on a starter. The gravity ring you need is 4 dash. Really just whatever you're able to, I guess. But the disc, I said over Q, but Keo recommended taper Q. But I mean, more or less, they kind of do, I would say, kind of similar performance. I just like over. And the driver is still bearing, because we can't make the list too diverse, because Hasbro has literally nothing. We have so many options, and there's like nothing. So if you remember, in like the Takeratomi Burst Standard version of this with like Wind BDR, this is essentially just the equivalent that we get. So what's really nice about this is that Whirl essentially kind of slaps Garuda for stamina, and Garuda is pretty good for stamina performance, but now Whirl has not only the benefit of a similar shape to Garuda, even though the diameter I don't think is right there, but more or less, like, same spin is pretty much able to beat almost everything, and opposite spin you can go in high mode and outspin and equalize against any left opponent. Its defense is very good, whether it's Nightmare or even Xiphoid. It's very, very tanky, so... Now, generally for counters, you would have stuff like, you know, like maybe Nightmare can sometimes do it, maybe Xiphoid could sometimes do it, but also for an example, Gambit on like Hasbro's Overdisc and like the kick attachment, that can destabilize Whirl and beat it. So there are niche counters to this stuff, and obviously in general, but just to mention, that way no one thinks, oh, these are invincible. No, these obviously can have weaknesses. Okay, we're basically gonna get started here, so I'll do like a little teensy little test launch for each of them. So we'll do a little launch for Whirl Evo Bellfire. I am a little bit disappointed that even though Hasbro has so many parts, it's not really like it's that diverse of a meta. Like even like the Hypersphere stuff can kind of just like self-KO or whatever, so it's like, right? It's like, I guess we get what we get, right? Also, these bays look very ugly. I also like, by the way, that if you realize it, like, majority of these bays are essentially just SwitchStrike. Like, 3 out of the 5 bays. 3 out of the 5 bays are literally SwitchStrike, and I can't keep... Okay, there you go, and then after the final one. So next up, I basically have to throw this up against other stuff, so we're gonna try to get Whirl. Let's try to get this up against Xiphoid. So either Whirl tanks it, and I basically show off that Whirl is very good, or I manage to KO it 1 round. Yeah, unfortunately, our attackers for the Hasbro meta is kind of bad. Okay, we're gonna... I can do this, I swear to God, man. Okay. Okay. No, this is also as good for Whirl, because it's basically just showing off its stamina capabilities. And also, it's tankiness, so obviously against the Xiphoid or Nightmare, it can do this. It can also lose to Xiphoid and Nightmare too, it just depends on how you use it and the luck of the round, right? Well, just to give you like a little bit of an example, you can see that basically Whirl is pretty tough, so... But, like I just said, show it off against like Belkesh. To save some time in this section, because they just equalized for a while, and I was just talking about how Belkesh is like still the toughest left, and other stuff like Fierce and Roar are very disappointing because they couldn't stand up to Belkesh. This is now against Surprise and Requiem, so we have to basically go with the equalizing stuff. So in here again, because it's like equalization, and I don't think anyone wants to sit through all of that, essentially what can happen is potentially Whirl could still obviously win, but let's just, you know, say that maybe it's really close, or maybe that's Surprise and Requiem. The reason why I think Whirl is very versatile is because of the fact it can apply low mode for same spin stuff, and then after for opposite spin, let's try to see it again, but in high mode, and see if the result differs a bit. Case this thing. So the benefit of high mode here is essentially that it basically has the height to sit on top of anything opposite spin. So when you're equalizing, you're more likely to win because you're sitting on top of your opponent. But obviously it's a case by case, and sometimes they obviously edge it out, but I just figured to mention that high mode still kind of has similar application to how it does in the Takeratomi counterpart. Okay, you can you can kind of see the point. Do I have to do it again? I think we got to do it again. I think we got to run it again. So you can see a little bit of a better example of kind of what I was just saying from the previous round there. Yeah, I mean, you know, even stuff like Gambit can also do pretty similar performance to what Whirl can do. It's obviously a case-by-case basis, just that Whirl is like a fat circle. It's a little bit more consistent than Gambit for same and opposite spin, so that's kind of why Whirl is there. But also Gambit's, I'd say, also like pretty solid too for what it's able to do. But let's see the end result. Okay, you can kind of see what I mean with the heights now. Perfect. Okay. Okay, now it's Belkesh against Surprise and Requiem. For Belkesh, yeah, like I said already, like I didn't want to just keep on giving it like bearing, because I technically can, and maybe it will be more accurate than the Atomic. It's just, I don't know, it's just to make it kind of try to be diverse. And plus, the combo works out fairly well. Actually, really funny is that Belkesh, you know, still beats stuff to me. Like, it does beat still Fafnir for me. It beats Fierce, it beats Roar. So, like, Belkesh is, like, decently consistent against, like, a lot of these lefts. Oh, it's actually going to win. It might prove my point. Okay, well, yeah, it did pretty close in that round, I would say. Pretty close. So, you can basically see the Belkesh does pretty well. I did swap the Atomic just a little bit quickly, just because got a little bit better results with that one. Now, if we try to throw this up against some attack stuff... Oh, no, actually, no, wait, the defense thing is true. I almost forgot, yeah. Yeah, I think Xiphoid really struggled. I remember when I did my testings originally, it really struggled against Belkesh. Okay, well, in this round, Belkesh is going to win just because of equalization. Yeah, let's... Other stuff. What if we do a stronger shoot? Alright, there you go. And then after Nightmare versus the Thing, probably Nightmare if you want to, I don't know, bearing, whatever. Okay, last one is, I guess, maybe like Nightmare just quickly against Surprise and Requiem, and then I pretty much demonstrate to you what the Hasbro meta is like. There you go. amazing. And then after you'd switch this to right spin and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So these are pretty much your finalists for Hasbro. These are pretty much your finalists, so that's what you get. That's what you get. Shout out to Keo for this kind of mini sort of collab thing that we did. And yeah, if you're a Hasbro fan, you at least get to know that there's some pretty good stuff. You know, fair enough to at least Quad Strike, eh? Fair enough that some of the Quad Strike stuff was able to make it. I tried my best to make sure to mention any alternatives in cases maybe you don't have the parts or maybe just old or whatever, but yeah, it's a very weird state of the meta, I actually have to say. It's a very weird state. But yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to be ending off this video. So thank you all for watching. Have a fantastic day and bye.